These are some rather odd things sitting here, but I promise this will get to be a leather project pretty soon, but I figured it needed a little bit of explanation before I got started. So this all started, my nephew wanted to take my sister's Roomba apart and make it swear when it ran into things. But my sister vetoed that because she wants her Roomba to still be able to vacuum the floor. So we came up with a brainstorming session and decided that we were going to do something a little bit different. We were going to take and make a collar for her dog that when he barks at people, it translates, basically, what he's trying to say into swearing at people. Translates in quote marks there because it's just going to play sounds that we can load into a sound chip. So what we have here is some components I got off of Amazon and hacked together and altered, and some stuff I had laying around. First and foremost, we have this little device, which is made to go on a dog collar, and it's supposed to vibrate and beep whenever they bark. And then that would supposedly train the dog not to bark. It did not normally have a USB cable sticking out of it. That's something I added. So I took this apart, opened it up, and I took out the parts, these little motors that made it vibrate, and I took out the little thing that beeps. And that's all gone now. So it doesn't beep, it doesn't vibrate anymore, because we don't really actually want to scare this dog. He's got problems already. But then I wired in some of the wires from this USB cable, and I wired two of them onto where one of the motors were, and the other two are onto the battery terminals in here, where the battery is actually soldered onto the printed circuit board. And so that can power a relay module, which is on the other end of this USB cable. It's got a positive and negative wire there, and then the one wire here is the one that works with the part of the board that used to be the little vibrating motor, and that will actually turn the relay on. And a relay is just a switch that's operated by an electrical circuit. So we've got one circuit and then a relay to turn on another circuit. It's pretty much what goes on. And then the other side of the relay is going to be the switch, which is what this was a switch that came on the end of these two red wires for this sound module that I picked up. These are like for like greeting cards or something. You can make a greeting card with a recording on it. It has a little USB port on it, a little micro USB. It's got a volume switch and a on-off switch, a battery, a speaker. And like I said, it did have a push button, and you push the button, it would play whatever files that you uploaded onto this. But now those are going to go into the relay. So the whole thing, when the dog barks, this tells the relay to turn on, the relay comes on, switches, and it plays whatever sound is next in the queue on this one. But now I need to find a way to add all of this together and put it on, of all things, an e-collar, an Elizabethan collar, the cone of shame from the movie Up. And that's going to be sort of the inspiration here, is I'm going to take and put on the cone some sort of leather covering that will hold at least these components. Those are all gone now. And cover those up. And of course, this can just attach directly on to the cone, and it has to clip into that. So that's the leather project, is to make some way to hold these things on a cone so that we can put it on the dog. Of course, the dog wears the cone normally all the time. This is his extra cone. He's got issues. And I took this scrap of leather, which I always have scraps of leather, and these pieces had an adhesive back on them, so they're stuck down to it. This one, the relay, is still wild and free, and I've got all these holes punched into it to match up to these pins on the back of this that come through. And then 4 holes on the corners to match up with these corners. And I'm just going to use these little tiny rivets that I've got to rivet that onto the leather. And then these pieces will be stabilized. As you can see, I've got a wire running loose here that pulled off right there. I'll have to resolder on. And that's why I want to really stabilize it right now, is because I'm getting tired of stuff coming loose. And that should hold all of that in place. The speaker's still running wild and free. And of course this will need to be attached to the cone somehow within reach of that. I think I'm also going to tin the ends of some of these wires while I'm at this. And that's just because these terminals are fuzzing these real fine wires out a lot. So I want to stick them together some with some solder. That's what I mean by tinning them. To just give them a little coat of solder on there. Just stick it on there and warm it up. Drag it through some solder. Well, I've got the e-collar we're going to attach this to. It's an old one that he doesn't use much anymore. He lives in an e-collar. I might have mentioned that before. Because he constantly hurts himself. And I'm going to go ahead and use one of these slots here that's for a collar. And I'll just slot up here for a collar. And I'm going to mark, I need some spots on the back of this. One in particular needs to be for each of these studs. And this is the noise sensor, is that little hole right in there. So I need to have that at least somewhat exposed. And then this is where the charging port is for this. So I want to make sure I can get to that as well, because then I can mount this pretty much permanently on this collar. Or semi-permanently at least, and make it a lot more solid. There, there, there. It'll be about like that. And yeah, it's going to be around in there. Looks like I need to take off just a bit there and there. There, now we can get to our charging port. That's open, and now I just need to punch a slot here that I can use to attach this. And I have just the right tool for that job. Again, I'll probably just mark these and rivet them in place. One there, and one right about there. So it's going to go through that slot, and then get riveted on the inside. which will make it much stronger. It was short enough I did crescent the rivet, but it's on there. Let's punch holes in the corners. A few little spots on here. And since this strap is straight and we're putting it on a cone-shaped object, you can't just measure it up square. It's not gonna work. Alright, now we're back to the plan of let's stick some stuff together with hot glue. Not my normal methodology, but in this case, I think it's the best way to go. Okay, we're going to touch this up a bit, just to try and get pieces to stay put. Especially these little wires that I had to keep resoldering as they came loose. As a kind of final step on this, I'm going to go ahead and make a piece to cover these electronics. And I've kind of drawn up a little pattern here based on laying this down and tracing. And then just sort of drew up what I want to cover and not cover so it won't be covering the speaker up. And leave enough space for it to wrap around. And I'm just going to grab a piece out of the scrap bin to do this. Because it doesn't much matter. And actually, with this black edge on this, it'll look good with just a black piece. And this is a piece of drum dyed black vegetable tan leather. Not that matters, anything will work. Because I'm just going to rivet it and then set a couple snaps because I want to still be able to get to that later if we need to. You know, turn it on and off, charge it, whatever we need to do. And just because I can't resist doing things the way that they probably should be done, I'm going to go ahead and finish the edges on this too. Alright. And we're going to put a rivet up there, and a rivet up there. Put a snap down here. And a snap over here. Set a couple snaps, we're almost there. I'm using line 20 snaps. They're still pretty good snaps, but smaller and more than enough for what I'm doing here. See how much can go crooked whenever you're going in plastic like this. Other side of the snap. Cap part of it. And the socket. There we go. All covered up. Got this connection that I can put together here and take apart as needed. Spark collar is on there. It's time to charge it all up there, and I'll take it up to my sister's house where we can see if it terrifies her little easily terrified dog.
Hello, I'm Keep On Going 446, and I'm here to introduce Wawa, the Chihuahua. He's a Chihuahua Papillon mix. He wears a hat. He's a little puffball of anxiety and barks.
Now what?
I smell a stranger. Be sure to like and subscribe to Branson's General Store.